If it's not a problem, Brother Taha, would you like to recite the dua? Or I can do if you want.
Inshallah, it will be an honor, inshallah, as you seem fit. All right. So Shahadat, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think you have to recite something else as well. Would it be okay for you?
Yeah, it should not be a problem, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So just to confirm, so Dua E Iftitah heard?
Yes.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أهلك أعداءهم أجمعين. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها وهموم قد كشفتها وعثرة قد أقلتها ورحمة قد نشرتها وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده الباسط بالجود يده الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير ما حاجة بي إليه عظيما وغناك عنه قديم وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وصفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على قبيح عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك فسرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطى عني عتبت بجهلي عليك ولعل الذي أبتى عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي. يا رب إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح بالجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرام وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه، فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد عاطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا واذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأذكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووسي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حجتك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك، صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم صل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وعاذذ به ذلتنا، وأغني به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به يسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة يا مالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به ما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وأعن على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبضر تكشفه ونصر تعذه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد.
صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن وأهلك وعداءهم أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, may Allah accept your amal, this recitation, and not so we pay our condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Zaman, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. We pay thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given us this opportunity. Alhamdulillahi alladhi hadana lihada. Alhamdulillahi alladhi ja'alana min al-mutamassikeen bi wilayat Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Tonight is the night of Shahadat of Imam Ali alayhi salatu was salam. And in this night, as is the Shab Qadr night, the best dua we can do is the faraj of Imam Zaman alayhi salam. I request everyone to remember Imam in your special prayers, all of the Mu'mineen, but especially the Imam of our time. May Allah make this month the last month that we spend without the Imam of our time, Insha'Allahul Aziz. I request our dear brother Taha to please recite Salam.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Echoing the words of our respected Sayyid Sajjad, conveying the condolences to the Prophet, the Ahlul Bayt, and the Imam of our time, and extending these condolences to all you fellow brothers, lovers of Ameer al-Mu'mineen. Inshallah, recite a salam in Urdu, but the mafhum is that indeed around this, that the mandar or the scenario where the janaza or the holy body of our Ameer was being taken from the house from Bayt al-Sharaf. نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے افلاک میں ایک شور ہے ماتم کے اثر سے نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے افسوس کے مسجد میں نمازی گیا مارا افسوس کے مسجد میں نمازی گیا مارا کچھ کم نہیں ہے حشر قیامت کے اثر سے نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے زینب سے یہ کہہ دو کہ وہ دل کھول کے روئے زینب سے یہ کہہ دو کہ وہ دل کھول کے روئے شبیر کی ہمشیر ہے رونے کو نہ ترسے، نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے، عباس عباس ذرا زینب مضطر سے خبردار، عباس ذرا زینب مضطر سے خبردار، فریاد میں ہٹ جائے نا چادر کہیں سر سے، نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے، ہاں بھول نہ جانا انہیں کوفے کے مکینوں، ہاں بھول نہ جانا انہیں کوفے کے مکینوں، گزریں گی یہ شہزادیاں اس راہ گزر سے، نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے، اصحاب بھی سن پائے نا جس بی بی کی آہٹ، اصحاب بھی سن پائے نا جس بی بی کی آہٹ، سر ننگے وہی گزرے گی اس راہ گزر سے، نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے، شبیر کو یاد آ گئی خود اپنی سکینہ، شبیر کو یاد آ گئی خود اپنی سکینہ، زینب کو ہٹایا گیا جب لاش پدر سے، نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے، یاد آ گیا زینب کو وہ پہلو شکستہ، یاد آ گیا زینب کو وہ پہلو شکستہ، رومال ہٹایا گیا بابا کے جو سر سے، نکلا ہے جنازہ کوئی اللہ کے گھر سے، افلاک میں ایک شور ہے ماتم کے اثر سے، لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن وأهلك أعداءهم أجمعين. Jazakallahu khairah. Now I request our brother Mustafa Naqvi to please recite Marsia. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد باردگان صلوات اللهم صل
اللهم صل
على
على
محمد
محمد وآل محمد.
اے روزہ دان رو آہو بکا کے یہ روز ہے اے روزہ دان رو آہو بکا کے یہ روز ہے سعادت پر نزول بلا کے یہ روز ہے سرتاج اوصیاء کی عزا کے یہ روز ہے تم سے وداع شیر خدا کے یہ روز ہے تم سے وداع شیر خدا کے یہ روز ہے میں ہوا امام تمہارا نماز میں سالم نے روزہ دار کو مارا نماز میں ماہ مبارک رمضان خدا کا گھر تڑکا وہ نور کا وہ شب قدر کی سحر پیش خدا وہ سجدے میں شیر خدا کا سر اور ہائے تیغ ظلم کی ضربت وہ فرق پر اور ہائے تیغ ظلم کی ضربت وہ فرق پر خوار خون کے زخم میں جبیں سے بہار کیے سجدے میں آپ ربی الاعلی کہا کیے دوڑے یہ کہہ کے جانب مسجد وہ نیک ڈوبی ہوئی لہو میں ملی کشتی نجات ماتھے پہ خون باپ کا مل کر کہیے باپ ہے اٹھایا قبلہ کعبہ پہ کس نے ہائے اٹھایا قبلہ کعبہ پہ کس نے بلوایا نانا جان کو دارو سلام میں بن باپ کا کیا ہمیں مارے سیام میں باندھا حسن نے زخم شاہ ذوالجلال بولے علی کے اور درد ہے کماں شبر نے جب کسا تو کیا پھر وہی مقام پھر چست باندھ کر یہ پکارا وہ خوش خیسا پھر چست باندھ کر یہ پکارا وہ خوش خیسا اب درد کیسا ہے اسد ذوالجلال हाथों से सर पकड़ के कहा वो ही हाल है रोज़ादारो आओ बारदिगार सलावत
آل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن وأهلك أعداءهم أجمعين جزاكم الله خيرا. May Allah accept this ibadat and increase the love of Ameer al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in all of your hearts, inshallah. Tonight we also want to remember mu'mineen who are in the need of our prayers. Please remember all of the mu'mineen and also recite a Surah Al-Fatiha for the marhumeen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الصراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Brothers and sisters, tonight is the night of Shab Qadr, inshallah. We will have Amal after Iftar starting at 9:45, and our respected scholar that we have with us here, Moulana Syed Hasan Tabatabai, he will lead the Amal, inshallah. Now I request him to please address the Majlis. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك وعلى آلك المظلومين صلى الله عليك وعلى أخيك أمير المؤمنين وسيد الوصيين وإمام المتقين صلى الله عليك يا أمين الله في أرضه وحجته على عباده صلى الله عليك وعلى ابنك الشهيد المظلوم أبي عبد الله الحسين يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. As our master Ameer al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was on his deathbed, his daughter Sayyida Zainab Salamullahi alayha walks in and she said, "Oh father, I want to ask you a question, but I know that you are in a difficult situation right now." Imam said, "Go ahead, O Zainab, ask whatever you want." She said, "I heard Ayman saying a tradition from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and I want to ask you about it." The minute our master, our Moula, heard this, tears started flowing from his eyes. And he said, "Yes, Zainab, what did you hear from her? What did she hear from Rasulullah?" Sayyida Zainab said, I heard her saying that she heard from Rasulullah that he said on the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam will be all alone in Karbala. He will be gharib in Karbala. He will be killed in Karbala. Is it true, my father? I want to ask you if this is true. Ameer al-Mu'mineen cried. He started weeping. He said, yes, this is true. Imam Hussein will one day be all alone in Karbala. I will not be there. His brother Hassan will not be there. No one will be there for him. But you will be there with him, Ya Zainab. She said, will I be there with him? He said, yes, Ya Zainab. You will be there. You will witness everything that will happen to him on that day. Sayyida Zainab Salamullahi alayha said, then what would happen to me? He said, Ya Zainab, you will be a prisoner for Bani Umayyah. You will be taken into captivity. Hussein will be killed. Your brother Abbas will be killed. You will be all alone, Ya Zainab. You will have no helper. You will have no supporter and no protector except Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She said, what else, my father? Tell me more. Prepare me for that difficult day. Amir al-Mu'mineen then cried and said, my daughter Zainab, you know how you are in Kufa at this moment. You will come back to Kufa again. You will come back to this city again. She said, will I come back? Yes, this is the answer of the Imam. Yes, my dear Zainab. Because you'll be in Karbala. You will enter Kufa, but in which state will you enter Kufa? You will enter Kufa as a prisoner for Bani Umayyah. You will enter Kufa and there will be no man with you from Bani Hashim to accompany you. There will be no man to support or help you. You will be all alone with the enemies of Allah from Bani Umayyah. You will be with the enemies of Allah like Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, Umar ibn Sa'd, Shimr ibn Dhil Jawshan. The people of Kufa will be surrounding you. They will look at you in the state. My beloved Zainab, at that time, I want you to be strong. I want you to remain strong and to look after the children and the woman of Abi Abdullah al-Husayn. Amir al-Mu'mineen remained in the state. Zainab kept weeping and crying. أيوا أبتا وعليا وضيعتنا بعد إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل بيت رسول الله أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. For the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi, please recite aloud salawat. The oppression that Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayhi endured in his life cannot be captured by words. In what situation was Amir al-Mu'mineen not oppressed? The enemies of Allah targeted him for his underlying loyalty to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Even those who would later enter Islam, but they still had enmity towards Rasulullah, they channeled all their hatred towards Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. Why? Because they cannot degrade Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If they attack Rasulullah or degrade him, they would naturally be accused of heresy and deviation and misguidance. So rather than attacking Rasulullah directly, they chose to assault the closest one to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, who's none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullahi alayhi. If it wasn't that, then can you tell me what is the purpose, or what was the purpose of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi being cursed on the pulpits of the Muslims for over 70 years under the rule of Bani Umayyah? The mere mentioning of Ali threatened the Umayyads and their ruthless dominion. If they did not see Ali alayhi salam as such a threat, and if he were not the complete human being that people are naturally gravitated towards, the Umayyads would not have launched such ruthless campaigns to slander his name. Brothers and sisters, we're unable to address all the trials and tribulations that our Moula, our master, lived through. But in today's Majlis, I want to address one particular injustice that he endured, and its effects continue today. Some of the writers, some of the historians, they accuse Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi of lacking political skill and expertise. They say that he failed in his administration of the Muslim nation in comparison to the rulers before him, and in comparison to his rival Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. The mere comparison, brothers and sisters, between Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Muawiyah and the other rulers is an injustice itself. How can we compare the immaculate, the infallible, the successor of Rasulullah, the door of the city of knowledge of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the door of the house of wisdom of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the embodiment of the truth, the embodiment of justice, faith, and iman, the perfect human being? How can we compare him to anyone else? Anyone else, let alone being compared to tyrant rulers and oppressors. So I want to shed some light today on this misconception and lift some of the injustice done by making the truth clear. First of all, brothers and sisters, it's important to know, where did this misconception originate from? How did it start? Who started it? This misconception started from the times of Bani Umayyah. The Umayyad propaganda machine, which the Umayyad dynasty heavily relied on to build their own legitimacy, takes the lion's share of credit in fabricating the lie about Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi, and fabricating this misconception. People that carried on this misconception attributed Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi with being the Imam of the simpletons, the Imam of the simple-minded people, the Imam of the poor and the underprivileged and the orphans, and so on and so forth. The idea was that he was not fit for the governors and administrating state affairs. Don't you notice that these are similar to the accusations that were done against Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the beginning of his mission by the non-believers of Mecca? When they used to say, oh, Rasulullah, who does he have? His followers are only the poor ones, those who are in the lower class, the slaves, the weak ones. That's what their history repeats itself. That's what they accused Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayh after that. They popularized the notion that Amir al-Mu'mineen did not enjoy the requisite political skill set, nor did he have the cunning of a political mind to lead as the head of the state. They usually point to Imam Ali's short period of rule, 4 years, that was characterized by chaos, treason, 3 major battles. They further assert that all this could have been avoided if Ali was less rigid on some of his ideals and more flexible for political compromise. Look at how they start playing with the game. They start giving examples of compromise, like what harm would it be if he had given Muawiyah governors over Sham? And then when stability is achieved, he could remove her. What harm would it be if he had given Talha and Zubair the authority over Kufa and Basra to deter them from waging the battle of the camel, which cost so many lives? Why did Ali not simply compromise on so many other issues when it is only human nature to do so within the political construct of societies? Notice the arguments, the style, how they try to support this misconception and make it a reality. Ali, Salamullahi alayhi, in the view of these people or these spectators, is not but a learned, pious, faithful, brave scholar. That's it. But he did not have political skill, doesn't have the know-how like the other rulers before and after him. So to discuss this misconception, a few points should be addressed. The first point is, brothers and sisters, when we want to compare two things, there must be some commonality between them. I mean, it would only be correct to compare, for example, 2 buildings. Compare this building to the other. This one is more impressive. This one has better durability. It's built with better material, so on and so forth. Or you compare, for example, 2 bridges together. Or you compare, for example, 2 teachers together, this teacher and that teacher, this engineer and that engineer, this doctor and that doctor. There must be a common ground to be able to draw comparison between people. On a human level, it would not make sense to compare, for example, a teacher to an engineer and then ask who's more successful than the other. Their work is completely different from one another. The way they are evaluated is also very distinctive. They're different. So in the same way, it is impossible to compare Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayh and Muawiyah to one another in the matters of governance and politics, because there's no foundational commonality between the two in their vision of government. Muawiyah looked at the seat of power as a political ambition. He looked at the throne as a goal, that he would do whatever that is necessary to obtain it. And he made it clear in several times. One example was to the people of Kufa after his peace treaty with Imam al-Hassan, Salamullahi alayh. He said, by Allah, I did not fight you so that you may pray or fast or perform pilgrimage or pay zakah. You already do that. I fought you because I wish to rule over you. Because he wishes to rule over people. Muawiyah inherited this political ambition and hunger for power from his father, Abu Sufyan. He's the one who said, seize the day, O sons of Umayyah. I swear by whatever you know me to swear by. I wish for you to take dominion, and it will pass down to your sons. I swear to you that there is no heaven, nor there is hell. These are the words of Abu Sufyan, the father of Muawiyah. for whatever the price and by any means necessary. That was their outlook on politics and governance. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi, looked at government and rulership and ruling people in a complete different manner. He looked at it as a tool to do justice, not as a goal. It is a tool. It is a means to lift oppressions from people who are oppressed, to deter oppression. Otherwise, there would be no value in power and government, and it would have no significance in the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi. So the very outlook, the very vision on government and politics differ in the essence between Amir al-Mu'mineen and Muawiyah. So it is fruitless to compare them to each other in government. A person who sees power as an end is ready to do anything to get that power, while a person who sees it simply as a means to establish principles such as justice and equity would not care for the position if it did not serve to protect and promote the principles. So there is no common ground in the first place to compare between Amir al-Mu'mineen and any other ruler. The second point is Muawiyah wished to establish for himself and his sons a dynasty of rule employing the power of the caliphate. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi, had no such aim. He only wished to establish the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why you see that he didn't care for political compromises. He didn't care for buying people's loyalty for the sake of securing his position of authority. Muawiyah, on the other hand, he aimed to buy people's loyalty through appointment of position, through giving money, through wealth. I'll give you one example, what he did with Amr ibn al-As. Muawiyah agreed with Amr ibn al-As that he would be the governor of Egypt if he becomes loyal to him. Amr ibn al-As agreed to become the governor of Egypt in return for loyalty to Muawiyah. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi, was unwilling to strike such a deal because this is injustice. This is corruption. He was firm in his principle. He would not buy people's loyalty no matter how small his support base became. He was not even prepared to make some of the companions advisory positions in exchange for their backing and loyalty. The story of Talha and Zubair is known. When they came to him one day, as Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi, was in Baytul Mal, in the state's treasury, doing some work for the state's, the public's treasury, looking at records and so on and so forth. He had a candle beside him that was lit. Talha and Zubair entered upon him to speak about some matter. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi, knew that they were aspiring to get some sort of position, some sort of wealth, some sort of, in exchange for loyalty to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen turned off the first candle and he lit another one. Now, Talha and Zubair were caught by surprise. They said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why did you do that? The candle was functioning. There's nothing wrong. Why did you turn it off and lit another one? Amir al-Mu'mineen said, this candle that I just turned off belongs to the state's treasury, belongs to the public's treasury. It was bought by the funds of the public treasury. As long as I am working in the affairs of the finances of the Muslims, the affairs of the public treasury, I can use this candle. But now you two have come to me for a personal matter. So I turned this one off and I turned my own candle, which I bought from my personal funds, from my personal money. Look at how precise Amir al-Mu'mineen was with the concept of justice. When they saw this, they lost every hope in gaining anything. If Amir al-Mu'mineen with a candle, this is what he does. Do you think he's going to give someone a position that he does not deserve to get? Do you think the Imam will be corrupt like other rulers? For sure not. Amir al-Mu'mineen saw no value in rulership if it did not implement truth and justice and deter wrong and injustice. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, one day he came to Amir al-Mu'mineen when he was in the province of Dhiqar, which is modern day the city of Nasiriyah, in Iraq. He found Amir al-Mu'mineen repairing his shoe, an old shoe that he had, and he was repairing it with his own hand. While Imam Ali was working on his shoe, fixing it and repairing it, the Imam asked Ibn Abbas, what do you say the value of this shoe? Ibn Abbas looked at the shoe. It's old. It needs repair. He said it's worth nothing. Nothing, really nothing. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, by Allah, this shoe is more valuable to me than your caliphate, than your rulership, except for the fact that I am in a position to establish truth and forbid evil. His sole goal was to establish truth and forbid evil, forbid injustice. That is why he refused to take the seat of power after the second caliph, because they wished to impose to him a number of conditions which would prevent him from accomplishing his goals of justice and fairness. So he preferred to hold on to the principles and would even sacrifice his own right to speak out against the injustices done to him. Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salatu wasalam, was not heedless to the different instruments politicians use, the different tools they employ to secure their own interest. However, Amir al-Mu'mineen refused to use such methods that were notably far from the straight path, far from the correct path and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions it in Sermon 200 of Nahjul Balagha, the path of eloquence. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Wallah, ma Muawiyata bi adha minni. By Allah, Muawiyah is not more cunning than I am. وَلَكِنَّهُ يَغْدِرُ وَيَفْجِرُ وَلَوْلَا كَرَاهِيَةُ الْغَدْرِ لَكُنْتُ مِنْ أَدْهَى الْعَرَبِ. He betrays and corrupts. If treachery was not evil, then I would have been the most cunning of men. ولكن كل غدرة فجرة وكل فجرة كفرة ولكن ولكل غادر لواء يعرف به يوم القيامة والله ما أستغفل بالمكيدة ولا أستغمز بالشديدة. But every betrayal is a corruption. Every corruption is a disbelief. Each traitor carries a banner that identifies him in the day of judgment. By Allah, I am not tricked by deception, nor I am overpowered with force. Amir al-Mu'mineen knew all the tricks of the trade, but he was unwilling to use them because they contradicted the principles that he never once swayed from. Moreover, between Ali alayhi salam and Muawiyah, there are two fundamentally different and contradicting schools on the matters of government and authority over people. So one who suggests to compare or suggests a comparative analysis on some basis of commonality would be a fallacy and an inappropriate attempt in every aspect. But for sake of argument, let's say that if we were to argue and say that compare Amir al-Mu'mineen to his enemies on the level of government, we would say we believe and know that the Imam was the most successful in politics and government. Consider the proclamation of Amir al-Mu'mineen that he made when he was struck by the cursed Ibn Muljam. He said, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba. By the Lord of Kaaba, I have triumphed, I have won, I have gained victory. Could such an assertion be made in such a tragic state by one who was a failure? Only a man like Ali could have such confidence and certainty in a state like that, with blood dripping and dyeing his beard. So we say it firmly that Ali was not only a model of success in leadership and governance during his time, but he was a model, a role model for all times. And I'll give you a few reasons for it. When we compare, number one, when we compare Amir al-Mu'mineen with Muawiyah, we ask if the two realized their goals that they set out to accomplish. We see that Amir al-Mu'mineen realized his goals completely. The evidence is that his goal was to establish the principles of Islam, to preserve the religion, to protect the faith. And no matter what the Umayyads attempted in distorting the religion and converting it into a tyrannical, monarchical empire, Islam remained intact and remained protected and preserved. And thanks to the sacrifices of Imam Ali alayhi salam and his progeny alayhim salam, the principles and the tenets of Islam were preserved. The name of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was protected and echoed 5 times a day throughout the world to today. And Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha mentioned it in Sham, that if you want to see who won, go and listen to the Adhan and see whose name is the one that is mentioned. While Muawiyah, on the other hand, his aim was to rule, attain power for his bloodline, for his sons and grandsons. And he was not able to realize his goals completely, because before he died, he passed the caliphate to Yazid, may Allah's curse be upon him, who only ruled for a few short years and drove the caliphate into the ground by killing the grandson of Rasulullah, by setting the Kaaba on fire. And then when Yazid died, his son Muawiyah II abandoned the caliphate, and the seat of the power was taken over by Marwan ibn al-Hakam, and no one else from the bloodline of Muawiyah inherited the caliphate. Marwan's rise to power indicated a shift in the Umayyads dynasty's lineage, from the descendants of Muawiyah to the descendants of Marwan. And the whole dynasty came to an end nearly 90 years. That left a legacy only known for bloodshed, corruption, oppression, and tyranny. So who can claim victory at the end? Another issue, brothers and sisters. History was not written by the followers of Ali. It was written by the enemies of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Or, to say the very least, individuals who were not his supporters. So no matter what was tried in fraud or forgery of the events that took place, you notice that history kneels humbly before the sanctity, faith, and piety of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi. By all accounts, history cannot help but praise Amir al-Mu'mineen and expose the crimes and treachery of the Umayyads. Keep in mind that this is even with the fact that most historians of the times were either supporter of the establishment, supporter of the governments, or they were hired by it. So who would claim victory here? Who does history determine as a failure, and for whom does it claim success? Another reason of the signs of Amir al-Mu'mineen's success was his ability to establish a following that adopted his principles and followed his path. Against all odds, Amir al-Mu'mineen faced from oppression, from civil war, from battles, from propaganda, smear campaigns, so on and so forth. Amir al-Mu'mineen inspired generation after generation to hold on to the teachings of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People pray to Allah day and night to bring them closer to their Lord through Ameer al-Mu'mineen, Salam Alaykum. They pray that they will be resurrected as a follower of Ameer al-Mu'mineen so that they can proudly stand behind Ameer al-Mu'mineen on the Day of Judgment. Yes, we do that every day. This is our wish. Ali's name was raised next to the name of the Holy Prophet in the Adhan, in the call to prayer, with a clear declaration that the continuation of the message of Rasulullah is through the imamate of Ameer al-Mu'mineen. Can the enemy of Ali claim such an honor? Tell me what opponent of Ali could claim to have a following like Ali, as sincere as the followers of Ali? Is there a person on the face of this earth who pleads to Allah and supplicates day and night, asking him to be resurrected with Muawiyah or with Yazid or with the Umayyads? I don't think such a person even exists. And if the person exists for sake of argument, then this person would either be ignorant or would be insane. No sane individual would wish from the bottom of his heart to be brought up with the oppressors and the tyrants of the Umayyads. So who is the triumphant? Who is the one who gained victory at the end? The moral is always the conclusion. Who has failed at the end? I think the answer is clear now. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised, وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. And the wrongdoers will soon know at what goal they will end up. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. The outcome will be in the favor of the pious ones. For the love of Ali, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, tonight will be the night of the 21st of the holy month of Ramadan. This is the night of the martyrdom of our father, Ameer al-Mu'mineen, Salamullahi alayhi. Let's travel with our hearts to Kufa, to the house of Ameer al-Mu'mineen, so that we may shed tears with Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra, with Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, with Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, Salamullahi alayhim. Imagine yourself beside the Imam in his last moments. Let's see what Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya is going to tell us. What happened in these last 2 nights of the life of Ameer al-Mu'mineen? Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya said that we carried Imam Ali to his house. Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein were the ones who were mostly devastated by the tragedy, because they're the ones who really knew who is Ali, Salamullahi alayhi. It is narrated that after the strike, Imam Ali alayhi salam gazed at his son Hussein for his crying and said, "My son, are you crying over me and there is only one wound on my body? As if I see you in the day of Ashura and your body is filled with wounds. Ajarakumullah." Ameer al-Mu'mineen was brought into his room, into his house, near his prayer spot. Zainab, Kulthum, the daughters of Ali, surrounded him. They said, "Abata, man lis-saghiri hatta yakbur." Father, who will be for the young one till he grows old? Father, who will be there for the adult when he is surrounded by people? Abataya, inna huznana alayka taweel, wa dam'atuna la tarqa. Father, our sorrow for you is everlasting. Our tears will not dry up. At that moment, people who were standing outside the house, they began wailing. The tears of Ali flew on his cheeks. He began staring at his daughters. Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, they were also called into the chamber. He embraced them, he kissed them. When he was brought into his room, into his chamber, the doctors also gathered around our Imam. They prescribed milk for our Imam. because the sword of Ibn Muljam was dipped in poison. Brothers and sisters, it is narrated that an announcement was made in Kufa telling people to bring milk for the commander of the faithful. Suddenly, a touching scene took place. What has happened? Only a bit of time had passed until the orphans, the children, the poor and underprivileged people of Kufa, they came towards the house of the Imam. Each individual was carrying a cup of milk. They were calling out, إلى أين يا أبانا يا علي? Where are you going? Oh father, oh Ali. Indeed, Ameer al-Momaneen is the father of humanity. Another touching scene is narrated by Al-Asbagh ibn Nabata. He says that I saw the orphans standing in front of the house of Ameer al-Mu'mineen. Each one was holding a cup of milk, saying that this milk is for our father Ali. At night, when Imam Al-Hassan Salam Alaykum got up to help out the orphans, to make sure that food and other necessities are delivered to them, just as his father Ameer al-Mu'mineen used to do, he saw one of the orphans. In his hand was a cup of milk, and he was crying and saying, my master, Moula, you have sent milk for us tonight. خذوا اللبن وارجعوا لنا أبونا علي. Take this milk back and please bring us back our father Ali. We cannot stand to live in this world without the presence of our father Ali. Tonight, brothers and sisters, we will also tell him, Father, Ya Abul Hassan, how can you leave us on a night like tonight? We are all your orphans, oh Ali. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, he says, on the eve of the 20th of the month of Ramadan, we were with our father Ali. The poison had flown through his body. He was praying while sitting down. He was consoling, advising us to do good deeds, to abstain from sinning and doing haram. And he kept mentioning this phrase, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. When it was morning, the people were allowed to come into the Imam. The people came in. They began saluting our Imam. Imam responded to them, and then he said to them, Saluni qabla an tafqiduni. Ask me before you lose me. The people began crying bitterly. They feared asking him questions because of his state. Except for one person. Who is that person? This person is Hijr ibn Adi Radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. He stood and he began mourning our Imam with touching lines of poetry. He said, فَيَا أَسَفِي عَلَى الْمَوْلَى التَّقِيِّ أبي الأطهايا يا حيدرة الزكي. I am depressed and I am mourning for the pious master, the father of the pure ones, Haydara, the pure and blessed Imam. The Imam then told Hijr, Ya Hijr, what would you do when you are called to disbelieve in me and to disassociate yourself from me? What would you say at that point, Ya Hijr? Hijr said, I swear by Allah, if my body was to be severed into pieces and my body was to be thrown into fire, I would favor such a fate over disbelieving in you and disassociating myself from you, O Master. Imam then prayed for Hijr and said, may Allah reward you for the good you have done for your Prophet's household. At that moment, Imam Ali asked for milk. Milk was brought to him. He drank it all. After he finished it, he remembered that he did not leave any milk for Ibn Muljam. May Allah's curse be upon him. So he said, وَكَانَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ قَدَرًا مَقْدُورًا. Know that I have drank all the milk. I did not leave any for your captive. And surely this is the last part of my sustenance in this world. My son Hassan, for the sake of Allah, offer your captive a drink similar to what you drink. Imam Hassan took some drink to Ibn Muljam, and this cursed man, he drank all the milk. On the eve of the 21st of the holy month of Ramadan, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya says, my father gathered us. He gathered us, the children and the family members, and he began bidding them farewell. The poison has penetrated more into his body. Aywa Imama wa Aliya. We looked at his feet. We saw that both of them has turned red. Aywa Masmuma. At that point, we were devastated. We lost hope in our father's life. We looked at his lips as they were moving. He was mentioning Allah. He was remembering Allah. Then he called each of his children by name, and he was bidding them farewell as they were crying. May Allah reward you. The Imam, Salam Alaykum, his forehead started sweating. He began wiping the sweat with his hand. This caught the attention of Zainab. She said, "Oh father, why are you wiping your forehead?" He said, "Daughter, I heard your grandfather Rasulullah Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam say, when a believer is about to die, when his death draws near, his forehead starts sweating and his moans stop." At that moment, Sayyidah Zainab stood and threw herself on the chest of Imam Ali, as if she says to him, علي علي يا ريف اليتامى بويا إن شاء الله تقوم بسلام. Father Ali, Father Ali, oh you who is a shelter of the orphans, I hope that you will remain with us. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل بيت رسول الله أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. ماتم حسين.
Hey Ali Mola, Hey Ali Mola, Hey Ali Mola. ये जनाजा है अली का, ये जनाजा है अली का, ये जनाजा है अली का, शाह खैबर गिर का, ये जनाजा है अली का, ये जनाजा है अली का, शाह खैबर गिर का, ये जनाजा है अली का। आज बाबा मर गया है शबरो शबीर का, یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ فاطمہ زہرا کے مرقد سے صدا آنے لگی، فاطمہ زہرا کے مرقد سے صدا آنے لگی، ہائے صدا آنے لگی۔ یہ مصائب رہ گیا تھا کیا میری تقدیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ یا رسول اللہ یہ جبریل نے رو کر کہا، یا رسول اللہ یہ جبریل نے رو کر کہا، ہائے یہ رو کر کہا، ایک حلقہ اور ٹوٹا نور کی زنجیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ کیوں چلائی تیغ حیدر پر ابن ملجم بتا، کیوں چلائی تیغ حیدر پر ابن ملجم بتا، ابن ملجم بتا، قتل قرآن کر دیا کاٹا گلا تفسیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ غم علی کی بیٹیوں کے پھر سے تازہ ہو گئے، غم علی کی بیٹیوں کے پھر سے تازہ ہو گئے، ہائے تازہ ہو گئے۔ غم ابھی بھولی کہاں تھی مادر دلگیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ نظر میں جانے علی کو کیا خیال آتا رہا، نظر میں جانے علی کو کیا خیال آتا رہا، ہے خیال آتا رہا۔ منہ کبھی زینب کا دیکھا اور کبھی شبیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ بیٹیوں کو دیکھتے ہیں اور روتے ہیں علی، بیٹیوں کو دیکھتے ہیں اور روتے ہیں علی، ہائے روتے ہیں علی۔ ہائے وہ ظالم تصور شام کی تشہیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا، شاہ خیبر گیر کا، یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا۔ باپ کی میت سے زینب کا لپٹنا بار بار، باپ کی میت سے زینب کالے پٹنا بار بار ہائے لپٹنا بار بار دل ہلا دیتا تھا رونا شاہ کی ہمشیر کا یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا آج بابا مر گیا ہے شبر و شبیر کا یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا شاہ خیبر گیر کا یہ جنازہ ہے علی کا.
La'natullahi ala qawmi al-zalimin. We end tonight's Majlis with the Ziyarah. Just a reminder that we have Amale Shab Qadr at 9:45 inshallah. Assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Habib Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Ameer al-Mu'mineen ya Sayyid al-Wasiyyin. Assalamu alayki ya Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. السلام عليك يا حسن بن العلي المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين السيد الشهداء السلام عليكم يا أئمة الهدى يا علي بن الحسين الزين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي التقي وعلي بن محمد النقي والحسن بن العلي العسكري السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك واجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Inshallah, we will resume at 9:45. Until then, Salamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.